have two beautiful brothers to actually share some of their stories. I had the opportunity to meet Brother Abdul Hasib some time back when he was visiting, and to learn about Islam in prison. And just hearing his own story about the transformation through Islam in prison, and being a founder of Islam in Prison organization for the dawah work in prison, to provide support for the Muslims in prison, and to continue with their rehabilitation once they are out of prison. And so inshallah, I won't take any more time. We'll let Brother Abdul Hasib start and to listen to their inspiring stories. Barakallahu fiik.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As-salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yawm ad-din. Wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, by default, I thank Allah by thanking you brothers and this community for allowing us the honor of being here as guests to share our stories and share our project known as Islam in Prison. We have 1 hour, so inshallah, we cut the hour in increments of 15 minutes. We're going to give a brief intro as to how I ended up being here. Brother Jay, he'll give his intro as to how he ended up being here. Then we'll go and share partly our work of Islam in Prison, but the result of our work, the impact of our work, so that you can understand why we do what we do. And the last 15 minutes, inshallah, will be a Q&A for if anybody has any questions or wants to volunteer, inshallah. We can help with that. So briefly, how did I end up here? And I'm not saying here in this masjid today, I'm saying with the work of Islam in Prison. As the brother Salim mentioned, I started doing time as a young man. I was 11 years old when I first caught my case. I see some kids here, subhanAllah. I have children of my own, and I cannot imagine any of my kids committing such an act of getting arrested and going to a police station, let alone a juvenile detention center. Then, a couple of years after that, I was 15 years old, and I committed another crime. And from there, I spent most of my teens, all the way until my probably late 20s, in prison. And it was in that journey, for whatever reason, Allah guided me. And just so you know, a side note, I was not aware of Islam. I was not aware of Allah. I was not aware of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I was oblivious to it. I was born into a Catholic home. My mother used to be a nun. My father's a homegrown Catholic, and all we knew was statues and saints. So, alhamdulillah, Allah guided me, and it was through that journey where I was able to learn about Allah and about Islam and grow. But I was not able to really grasp Islam like I do today, this very moment of my life. So coming home as a practicing Muslim, thinking that the community is ready to accept me, reading the books of hadith, I had a feeling that when I go to the masjid and I say, Assalamu alaikum, that everybody would say, Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, brother. That was not the case. So my life was like this. So I revisited prison as an adult now 2 times. So that's 3 times, 18 years, almost 18 years of my life in a box. And it was that last journey where I hit my rock bottom, where I had enough of my life as it was. And for whatever reason, Allah gave me purpose. And my purpose was Islam in Prison. Islam in Prison is my therapy. Islam in Prison is something that I can give back to those who I understand, who have no voice, who are either forgotten, neglected, or not even on the radar. Another side note. When I began this project and I talked about it, Muslims were asking, there are Muslims in prison? Yes, there is. But there's a difference between a born Muslim or an ethnic Muslim and a revert Muslim. There are many revert Muslims in prison. Just like how Allah found me in darkness and gave me light, Allah guides whomsoever He wills. We hear it on the minbar every Friday. And He guides many people from one Friday to the next, from one Ramadan to the next. And so this project brought me here, and this is why I'm here today. And this is Brother Jay. You can introduce why you're here today.
I guess I'll use this one for now, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Brother Jay. Just to give you guys a little introduction of myself, similar to what Brother Abdul Hasib said in his story, I was somebody at a young age that was involved with the wrong people. I was somebody who was not conscious of Allah, wasn't conscious of what is right from wrong. I just felt like life was just meant to be lived in a way that fulfilled my desires, I guess you could say. My first run-in with the law, I was 15 years old. That was my first time being put in handcuffs, taken to a police station. I was a young kid, just going around doing stuff that I shouldn't be doing. After that, I thought, you know what, this was a learning experience. Maybe I will just stay on the better path, try to do things that I would be beneficial for me. Unfortunately, I ended up going down a worser path. And down this path, involved myself with new friends, worse friends. And us living out here in the West, especially us who are parents now and we have children, it is concerning for us. We all worry about, even though we're all able to freely practice our faith, we're concerned about all the stuff that is around us that may influence our children to go into a lifestyle or be involved with things that we wouldn't want them to. And I'm the prime example of that. I'm one of those individuals that was easily sucked into this life where it was unholy. It could be something that was it would be displeasing to Allah. Eventually, life choices and the things that I made and the negative choices had led me to be incarcerated. And this time for a crime that I didn't commit. And in this scenario, I was in maximum security prisons, maximum security divisions. And throughout my incarceration, it was a constant fight for survival. We're involved in a situation, an environment which is violent, and it's also an environment that's, it's the way it is set up, the politics, the jail politics, it's not meant for anybody in there to have any hope or to want to do better in life. It's just, there's this constant darkness, this constant hopelessness, this feeling where there is no iman or whatever. And unfortunately, my life was getting worse. Family, I kept losing people, my loved ones in my family. I was fighting actually a very serious charge, and which eventually I ended up getting convicted for, wrongly convicted. And throughout this journey, I was trying to find purpose in my own life. I wanted to see what was it, the reason for me. I wasn't questioning why I was in prison. I never used to question like, why me, why does this have to be me? It was just more so of, okay, I'm here now, so what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do? Do I have a purpose in life? Am I meant to sit here and to basically rot in here for the rest of my life? So the justice system and the wheels and how it operates and how it's created, it is meant to prolong cases and it's meant to keep you lost in the system. So it was dedicated to keeping me incarcerated for the rest of my life. And although I was fighting during my time in incarceration while fighting my case and my charges, I was struggling to find purpose in my own life. And after realizing that after losing countless family members and realizing that I'm constantly losing these battles in the courtrooms, the little pre-trial hearings and stuff like that, I realized, there's something greater than this. There has to be a reason behind this. So when I picked up the translation of the Quran and I started reading more, I realized how much Islam was just aligned with my fitrah, how much it was aligned with what I believed in growing up. And when I read more and more about it, I decided one day, I said, you know what, I want to give my life to Islam. I'm going to become a dedicated and sincere Muslim, and I took my Shahada. And after that, you would think that things would get so much better and so much easier, like the doors, Allah is just going to open the doors for you because now you're a Muslim. But in fact, the opposite had happened. I ended up being convicted for the crime that I didn't commit, and I was sentenced to 56 years in prison. And my out date was 2072. And I was sent to a maximum security prison, and everything around me just kept getting worse. But one thing that gave me hope and gave me peace was when I read Surah 29, verse 2, when it says, "O you who say you believe, don't you think that Allah won't test you?" And it made me realize, okay, there's only one reason here. Either I give up and lose hope and be like the rest of the people that are incarcerated, or I believe in this verse and I believe that this is just the test, that either I throw in the towel now or I keep going. And eventually, after I constantly relied on my Lord, relied on my Creator, that whatever reason He has for me, whatever His purpose is for me, is what's best for me. The moment I became content with that and I accepted my reality that I might spend the rest of my life in prison, is the moment that Allah became merciful to me and blessed me with His generosity and bounty and reversed my conviction and finally vindicated me and opened the doors and freed me. I went into prison in 2014 when I was only 19 years old and I was just a kid. And I only came home last year, 2024, at the age of 29. So after serving 10 years in prison for a crime that I didn't commit, after all the struggles and hardship that I faced in it, Allah has finally decided that it was time for me to be released and to represent the brothers and sisters that are incarcerated. So that is why when I came home, the way Allah's qadr is and His perfect plan, I ended up meeting Abdul Hasib. He reached out to me, and I remember going to the ICNA convention in Chicago last year in 2024. And I remember seeing a jail cell in the convention. I'm like, subhanAllah, what is this? And then I realized, like, wow, this is an amazing thing that they have going on here. And it was awesome. It amazed me because it dawned on me and made me realize how there wasn't enough prison advocacy as far as our Muslim community and the support that the Muslims have in prison. We just don't have that. And I remember it took me back down in a place where I remember that I couldn't have just dates for Ramadan. I couldn't even go to Jumu'ah Salah. I can't even congregate with my brothers and sisters. We weren't even able to have an Eid celebration. We weren't even able to have many things that us as a community, we don't appreciate. We don't appreciate it now because we always have it. But in a situation like prison, we didn't have it at all. So when I saw what Islam in prison was doing, how dedicated they were to serving the brothers and sisters that are incarcerated, I felt like this was my opportunity and the reason why Allah has opened the doors for me, so that I could be a voice for the voiceless. And that's why I'm here today now on behalf of Islam in prison with my brother, Abdul Hasib.
Takbir. Allahu Akbar. Can you imagine, subhanAllah, can you imagine just for a second being just one member of the people of the cave 300 plus years, and then coming home, everything's different, everything's foreign. You go in, no cell phone, you come out, smartphone, subhanAllah. You would not be here if it was not for Allah Azza wa Jal to have mercy, because that's what it comes down to, rahmah, right? 2072, imagine that. Being in prison for all those years. It's not man, it's not a game. Just like in society, fastest growing religion in the world, in prison, it's double. Some da'is call it the silent da'wah because you go to the prison and they come to you because they're looking for something. And if you come with the Quran, they take it and they read it. And we read it in a way that's very unique than if we're out here, right? So the program is called Hidden Gems Behind Walls. We can share stories, prison stories, right? Who wants to hear prison stories? Ah, I knew it. You know, stories in prison is, I don't know, I hear people talk about, oh, I was in prison and it was like that. Part and part, Allah protected me a lot of different ways. I didn't have the chance to, you know, make a knife, a machete, and go harm somebody like some people have, right? Nor did I get hurt either, right? Because that happens. I could tell stories about the juvenile hall. If you got some nice shoes, you better know how to fight, right? If you got family that visits you every weekend, but the other kids don't have visitors, you can get bullied. I can tell you those stories as well. I can tell you stories of the adult prisons. I'm an 18-year-old kid put in a box with people who have already committed 20 years, 30 years into the prison system, some never going home. I'm fresh meat, but Allah guided me. Plus, I was in a gang, so that helped, right? Being in a gang helps, but don't join it. Being Muslim is one thing. Have both of your feet in the deen, not 1 foot in deen and 1 foot in dunya. I'm telling you from experience. It's not gonna help you and you're not gonna end up anywhere, except what I call Dolin, right? You're gonna go straight. The story that I'm gonna choose to share is a true story. There was a brother, my blood brother, who I have been doing dawah for many years. I've been Muslim 23 years. So let's say for 20 years, I was doing dawah to him. I didn't get a chance to have a relationship with my brother as a grown man. When I went in, and I was in, he went in. When I came out, he was in, and he stayed in. He was never supposed to come home. He was supposed to die inside a box, alone, in the cold, in prison. SubhanAllah. But in his journey, and I'll say his name is Victor Fabian. That's important to the story, so remember it. What's his last name? Fabian. And so, one day, he discovers he has a disease of the stomach. And he's told that he has like 4 to 5 years. And suddenly, out of nowhere, he calls me through Collect all the time. Hey, bro, can you send me a Quran? Mind you, I've sent him multiple Qurans. But this time, it sounded a little different. I sent him a Quran. And as usual, I'm thinking he's just gonna put it somewhere and forget about it and whatever. But as he calls me, he's asking me questions about the Quran. A story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, a story of Nuh alayhi salam. And so I'm remembering, wow, he's actually reading the Quran. So now I'm making dua. I did my part. I gave him the Quran. I've kind of talked to him a bit, but the rest is between him and Allah. Allah guides whomsoever he pleases. So we hear this all the time. So as he calls me, and as the years pass, and he's getting closer to his 4 to 5 years of his cancer, he calls me one day and he says, hey bro, man, if I become Muslim, will Allah get me out? What a question, right? What do I say? I say to him with skepticism, I'm being honest, even I didn't believe it, okay? And this is something that I want you to go home with. I told him, oh, of course, if you're sincere and you speak to Allah and don't associate partners, especially if you do it like at nighttime, if you do it, you know, if you're in sujood, you know, just, yeah, of course he'll get you out. But I didn't even believe it. I'm telling you, I'm being honest, I didn't even believe it. He's never going to come home, okay? So I guess he's thinking about it. So he calls me, he says, hey, I want to be Muslim. What do I got to do? I said, okay, well, hold on. So I three-wayed the call, and I called another masjid. And the brother that answered the phone at the masjid was a brother that I knew. And I said, Brother Saf, my brother wants to take shahada. Please give him the shahada. I'll witness it. I don't want to be biased. Because in the back of my mind, I don't believe he's sincere. I don't, right? So he does the shahada, alhamdulillah. Then he's like, okay, what's next? And we're like, that's it, you're Muslim. So now I'm gonna send you some books, learn how to pray, learn it in English, learn Aleph Bata, and we'll go from there. I'll be your teacher. Call me anytime and we'll go over it. Fast forward a couple of months. He says, man, this pain is so bad, and I don't want to keep taking the drugs because the drugs just knock me out. It makes me fall asleep, and I don't want to fall asleep because I'm scared that I'm never going to wake up, but I can't deal with the pain. What do you recommend? I says, well, I don't know anything about medication. Like, talk to the doctor and maybe get a higher dose. Then he says, man, I want to listen to some of that music. He's asking for Quran. So in prison, they have like a phone. It's a tablet, like an iPad. They don't have access to internet. It's intranet. It's whatever the institution uploads within the system, they have access to. So he has the phone in one hand. He has his tablet on the other. And I tell him, okay, find a reciter called Abdul Basit. He finds it. I said, okay, find a chapter called Surah Ar-Rahman, the compassionate, right? He finds it. So he downloads it into his app. He calls me again later. He says, hey, do you believe that my name is in that chapter? It keeps repeating over and over. What's his last name? Say that? Subhanallah. So now I know he's actually listening to Quran. And then he tells me that he kind of reduced the medication because listening to it allows him to fall asleep with less pain. And Allah already told us the Quran is what? Shifa. So he's a living example of how I wish I can look at Islam today. But I've already have murky thoughts, and dunya has already corrupted me, right? So I'm sure I speak for many of us, it's kind of difficult. But he's in a box with a disease. He's about to die. There's no hope. He became Muslim, Allah knows best his intent. A couple of months passed by. We're in October of 2022, he took Shahada. November of 2022, he calls me, he says, hey, there's a law that's gonna be effective next year in January. I may qualify. I said, what's the law? I checked it out. I said, let me call a lawyer. I called a lawyer. She says, I understand what he's looking at, but there's no way he's gonna get out. For his crime, there's no way he's gonna get out. At the end of November, he says, just do it. Have her apply and see what happens. December comes. He calls me and he says, hey, I got a piece of paper, I need an address. An address for what? He said, just in case. They gave me it to me. The counselor gave me the paper, I have to put an address in case I go home. I said, of course, you're gonna come live with me. Again, there goes my skepticism. There's no way. You guys know where I'm going with this, right? SubhanAllah. December, January comes, we apply. He calls me, he says, hey bro, are you gonna pick me up? This is the second week of January. And I said, what do you mean pick you up? He says, they approved me. Allahu Akbar. I said, are you sure? He's like, yeah, the counselor just told me. I called a lawyer, I asked her, she doesn't know anything about it. She makes some phone calls. She calls me back, she said, yeah, he got approved. SubhanAllah. I picked up my brother 2023 February, the first week, in a wheelchair. And I hugged him after not hugging him for a long time. So I have him in the car, we go eat, I take him home. He meets my family. He meets his nieces and nephews. Here's the ending and the kicker of the story. He passed away after 33 days. 30 days prayer, 30 days, masjid, 30 days eating halal food, really good food, okay? The last 3 days, he went into a coma, Allah took him. Allah allowed me to witness him. That morning, I prayed Fajr, something told me, I don't know where the tradition comes from, to read Quran next to him. In a coma. The moment I finished reading the Mus'haf and I closed it, he took, and I knew Allah took him. I closed his eyes, I made dua, contacted my father and the family, his kids, and he's gone. Before I end this story, I would say, the law that passed that got him out is a law by the name of a gentleman with the last name Coleman. It's called the Coleman Act. He passed away in prison. His family, 2 years prior, fought and got politicians in support to get it passed that if a person's in prison who's gonna die because of a disease, they should die home with their family, not alone in isolation. They call that law compassionate release. The same surah that gave him relief. SubhanAllah. So I end with that gem of a story that changed my life. That the same Rabb that he spoke to and whatever deal he made with Allah is the same Rabb of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the same Rabb of Nuh alayhi salam, the Rabb of the Anbiya that we think is history, like historical, when it's the same Allah that's here with us today, the same Allah that's protecting people simultaneously taking people from dunya. Allah has his wisdom. Doesn't matter why. What I'm here to share with you is this work is not just important. There's people who are never going to come home who take the Shahada. What do we do as a project? It's beyond prayer rugs. It's beyond the Islamic resources of dhikr beads, kufis, hijabs, and books, libraries and dates and halal eat meals. It's about put us as your emergency contact. In case something happens, we know what to do with your dead body because your non-Muslim family are going to want to bury you Christian. So have a living will and testimony. Not just that, what if you do come home? Remember what I said in the very beginning? Assalamu alaikum. We need to, as a community, be that, a community. I can say this though. This community is very different from my community. I love this community. If the houses were just a little bit less expensive, I might move out here, subhanAllah. You know? But mashallah, Allahumma barakum to all of you for being part of this community. This is a beautiful community, and I pray only to Allah to bless it, to continue to bless it, to protect it, and to keep it intact until the next generation and the following generation, until we're all done with this world. And I end my story, and Brother Jay, you may continue with yours.
Jazakallah khair. MashaAllah, that's a beautiful story and a beautiful testimony. And it is truly remarkable, and it just serves as a testimony for us to really believe in Allah's mercy. And it's one of those things that you cannot deny Allah's existence. And what did Allah say in Surah Rahman? And which favors would you both deny? Which favors of your Lord would you both deny? Like, this is one of those favors. If we see, like, it's one of the blessings and miracles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what He'll do for His servants. But not only, the thing that's remarkable about this is that this story of his brother is one of many. One thing we need to realize about our community, our ummah that is incarcerated, there are over 250,000, 250,000. We're talking about closer to 300,000 Muslims that are incarcerated right now in the United States prison system. That includes juvenile detentions, that includes county jails, that includes state and federal prisons. In total, roughly 300,000, over 250,000. Majority of them are reverts, new Muslims. Some of them are born Muslims. Some of them are ethnic Muslims. They're born Muslim, they found Islam later in life. Because all of us have to find Allah, even those that are born Muslim. And this is his story is one out of the 300,000 that are incarcerated. There are many more, and I could go on stories after stories after stories of Allah's intervention in matters where you feel like what's impossible, Allah made possible. My situation was impossible. I truly believe, like, after everything, the cards were stacked against me, I felt like my fate was to spend the rest of my life in prison. And the impossible happened, where it seemed like Allah had other plans for me. And with everything, there was no end in sight. There was no light at the end of the tunnel for my situation. Allah brought me to the end of that tunnel in the blink of an eye. And there's other stories of different individuals that I've met, amazing brothers, sincere brothers. And the story that I'll touch on, two quick stories that I will touch on. One brother who was heavily involved in the gang life. And I was just telling this story about this brother to Abdul Hasib earlier. Really involved in the gang life. He's a product of his environment. It's not his fault that he was placed in this situation. He comes from a background where his parents, his father's in and out of prison, mother's a drug addict, and he's just out here in the streets. His family and his only friends that he has is his neighborhood, his gang that he's involved in. This is where he found his family. This is where he found his brotherhood that he needed, the void that he had in his heart. This is what filled that void for him. And he became infamous within his area. And where we're from Chicago. For those who know how Chicago is it's a different type of environment. It's a very violent environment. And we grew up in this environment. We lived it. We know what it's like. But this brother that I'm talking about lived in a very harsh, a very, very cruel environment where it was literally you were waking up to survive. And his situation was, in the process of him going to commit just another one of his crimes with his friends, he is being watched by the police. And the police, to intervene from that crime taking place, there is a shootout that happens between him and his friends and the police officers. Where the two of his friends that he grew up with, his close friends that he were with, they were killed by the police officers. They were shot and killed, and he was shot multiple times, once in the liver. And now he was charged for an attempted murder on the police officers, and he went to prison. He got convicted for the crime. But throughout his incarceration, just like myself and just like everybody else, he wanted to find purpose in his life. Like, if this is going to be the rest of my life, then so be it. But let me find purpose in it. And he found Islam. Allah guided him to Islam. Nothing else guided him. Like Abdul Hasib said, it's the way we perceive the Quran in prison is different from how we see it out here. Our mind is corrupted by this dunya. It's clouded. We're distracted. We have bills, responsibility, kids, work. Everything that's around us is distracting us from truly grasping Allah's speech. But us in prison, there's nothing to distract us. When we're in that box and we're in that cell, all we have is us and that and the speech of Allah, and us to be able to interpret it, read it, and let it fill our hearts. And his heart was illuminated. He found Allah and he took his shahada and became a Muslim. But as a consequence for what happened with his case, when he was shot in his liver, he now is right now where he is stage 4 liver failure. His liver is failing as a result of his injury for that incident that happened. Where now he is on dialysis and they put a little machine inside his skin. Now I had this conversation with this brother the other day. He has no one in his family is Muslim. No one in his family supports him in the way that our family, we would support our own loved ones, our own kids if they were in that situation. And he would call me saying, hey brother, I'm not gonna be able to call you for a while because I don't have any money to put on my phone account. But this brother, when I was in prison, used to lead Salat. They gave him the name Yasin. He is memorized Juzatul Amma. He memorized Surah Yasin. He memorized Surah Hadith, Surah Mulk, Surah Waqiyah. He memorized the last juz, 29th, 27th, a third of the Quran. He managed to memorize by himself on his own with his teachers and his friends that were around him. And he led prayers, and he teaches the Muslims. Whenever he's able to, he teaches the Muslims, all while he has stage 4 liver failure, not knowing what awaits him, what his fate would be in the future. However, he accepted Islam, and he's content with whatever that is, what Allah has decreed for him. And I remember when he told me the other day on the phone, he said, I don't know what it's like to be a Muslim on the outside. I've never been a Muslim on the outside. And I used to think, subhanAllah, like the brother, the amount of knowledge he has, how much he knows about the deen, the amount of iman and taqwa he has, and how much reliance he has on Allah, more than any of us could ever have. The amount of knowledge he has, the way he studies fiqh, the way he studies usul, the way he studies these things, tafsir and stuff, is the average layman, the average Muslim who are born Muslim might not even know these things. But he is so knowledgeable when it comes to the deen, yet he was able to look me, he was able to tell me over the phone, I don't know what it's like to be a Muslim on the outside. And everything he had was from in there. And this is from being able to find books here and there. He would get moved to another prison. There's a book laying in his cell, a Muslim book. He'd pick that book up. It's a translation in another cell. He'd pick that book up. Somebody would so happen to, hey, if you want me to send you a book, I'll send you a book. Oh, okay, thanks. Because he doesn't have family to support him. So throughout his incarceration, he's been incarcerated for, I'd say, roughly about at minimum 15 years. And throughout his incarceration, he'd pick up books, these gems behind walls, literally, and absorb as much as he can. And he is the imam. Wherever prison he goes, he is the imam for that prison. With the limited resources that he has and the limited support that he has, he was able to become the leader and the imam that he is now. And it also goes back to another story of a brother that I knew, that I spoke to 1 month before my release, who looked me in the eye and told me, brother, I want you to look around you, look at the barbed wire, look at the fences, look at everything that you see around here, the prison yard and everything. We were on our way back to the cell house from the cafeteria. And he says, take a good look around you. Everything that you see out here, alhamdulillah, is going to be behind you. This is going to be all just a memory, and you're going to use this to be able to be a voice for us. But remember that everything that you see around us will be my life for the rest of my life. He became a Muslim in prison. He's been incarcerated for 30 years. And he looked me in the eye and told me, I will never, ever have the feeling that you have right now, knowing that you're about to go home. Because this is where I'm going to die, and this is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. But alhamdulillah, even knowing that his fate, he will die in prison, he's able to look me in the eye and say, alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah. Even in this situation, if I were to die here, he could still say alhamdulillah in a situation like that. Shows Allah's guidance and what he could do for a brother and sister that's incarcerated. And he is just another brother out of 300,000 Muslims that are incarcerated, that don't have the support that they are entitled to, that they deserve as our brothers and sisters. It's a community obligation for us to treat them like they were just another one of us in this community that's sitting amongst us right now. Whatever it is that they did when they took the shahada, everything that was done before, what the Prophet ﷺ said, it's wiped away, it's gone. Doesn't matter what it is that brought them in there in the first place. If it was so bad, if everything, whatever it is, so bad, Allah's mercy is so vast, He's the all-forgiving, most merciful. If it was so bad the way we perceive it, then why would Allah guide him then? Because we know Allah is the one who guides. Allah guided him for a specific reason, for a specific purpose. Despite us, with our limited knowledge from a human perspective, thinking like, how could anybody like this ever be entitled to receiving any sort of help? We sort of just write them off like they're not worthy of our help. They did what they did, they're in prison for a reason. But obviously Allah sees something that we can't see, and that's what's inside their hearts. And Allah, because of what's in their heart, Allah guided them to Islam. And now many of them are better Muslims than any of us probably ever will be. And that is why this work is so important. Allah has blessed me to have amazing family. He's blessed me to have two supportive parents to help me in my journey. If it wasn't for my parents, I wouldn't have the support that I had while I was incarcerated. If I didn't have my parents, they wouldn't help. I wouldn't have had the support that I had when I was released to help me get on my feet, to be where I'm at now with Abdul Hasib, to be here being a voice for these brothers and sisters. But Allah made that happen. But there are brothers right now that don't have their parents. There's sisters right now that don't have their parents. They found Islam in prison, therefore their parents and their closest main supporters are non-Muslims. You don't think there's many of these brothers and sisters whose parents probably turned their back on them because you're a Muslim? We're Christian, son. We're Christian, daughter. We don't believe that stuff. That they turn their back on them. Who do they have? They have, the only ones that they have is the ummah, is us. So what Islam in Prison is doing, on top of the da'wah that we're doing, on top of the new Muslim, the Muslim relief and support while someone is incarcerated, post-release support, transitional housing, giving them a space to where if they don't have immediate family members, they don't have anybody that's helping them the way that I had the help, that the way either he had or whoever else had it. Islam in Prison is there to fill that void. Islam in Prison is ready to step up to the plate where people are not willing to step up and fulfill their obligations to these brothers and sisters as a brother and sister to help them out. We are here to give them a place to be able to reintegrate into society. In the way that they do that, mental health support, giving them a musalla to pray around their brothers and sisters that experience the same stuff that they went through while incarcerated. Financial literacy courses, Islamic classes, to just be able, just to be like one of us. There's brothers and sisters more qualified, better, that are more worthy of sitting here right now on this table than me and Abdul Hasib. That when they would give a khutbah, it would bring you guys to tears. And they can't because of the predicament they're in. So all we could do right now is to be there and support them. We're supposed to love one another for the sake of Allah. I could love another Muslim brother and I don't have to know this brother. That love comes from Allah. And this is the same way that we need to look at our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated. We need to love them for the sake of Allah, not for them becoming, or write them off for what they did or what happened in the past. That's between him and Allah. Allah has obviously forgiven him by guiding him. So let's all together, the knowledge now has reached you. Sometimes people don't know that there's a huge community of 300,000 that are in prison. Therefore, you weren't held accountable for that. But the knowledge has finally reached you. Now you know of a community in there. And it's important for us to be able to support them in any way that we can, inshallah.
Really quick, before the Q&A, we got 13 minutes. The number that we use, the almost 300,000, it's a survey or a stat from 2 universities. But I believe that number is wrong. I believe in the past 2 years that number has grown because of detention centers. The government are locking up Muslims now for whatever reason, immigration status. So we get a lot of requests now for the past 2 years from a chaplain or an authority figure within a detention center that they need Qurans in Arabic, they need Qurans in Chinese, they need Qurans in Turkish. So we try to fulfill those. For sure, without a doubt, we ship all detention centers in America now for the past 2 years, prayer books, hijabs, and kufis. We can't do all languages because we don't carry all languages, but we do have the Arabic. And many of the brothers, the chaplain or someone calls us and tells us, we got the stuff, we thank you so much, and the people here, this is what they're looking for. So I think that number of 300,000 is higher because of the detention centers, and it's growing, right? If anybody here has a loved one in a detention center, we can send them directly religious material. The only thing we would need is the last 4 numbers of their alien number. That's it. The rest I can figure out when we can ship it, inshallah, just in case you guys want to be able to send someone something to your loved one. Now time for the QA, inshallah. Please tell me there's a bunch of people who want to volunteer here in Texas. We can do that as well too.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair. So two questions I have. One is in relation to the transitional housing. I work in the mental health field, so I was kind of curious to know if I had patients who are Muslim, who may have been recently coming out of jail or prison, if there are any resources in the local area that y'all have. And then the other question I have is, I'm pretty familiar with the different programs out there for addiction, but just from your guys' personal experience, what have you seen in the prison environment in terms of how Islam helps people with addiction in overcoming addiction? How do you think Islam helps them in overcoming that? What have you seen?
So I'll answer the first question. He can answer the second question. We're local. We're not local. We're from Illinois, right? But our work is national. So what we do is we collaborate and partner with other groups that are Muslim that do prison work. So there's an organization not too far, I'll say maybe 40 minutes from here, called Huma Faith. And that brother, we work together. He has a property, I think 1 or 2 properties, where if you have someone local here who's getting out, that's a resource for that brother or sister, particularly brothers, who can actually have a place to stay temporarily until they're able to get the transitional support they need to move on with their life as a practicing Muslim. I can give you that information at the end, inshallah.
To answer your second question, unfortunately, I feel like addiction has become a lot worse in the prison environment now than it was in the past. In the past, there was your occasional recreational quote-unquote drugs that are going around. After a while, with new innovations and tricks and schemes, people figured out how to get different types of synthetic drugs and stuff into the prisons. That, unfortunately, majority of the prison population has become addicted to that. And it's sad because once these new drugs started coming into prisons, it kind of like destroyed all the structure, some sort of like prison code that we used to have. There's rules. Prison politics gains, the way we operate is there are rules on how you carry yourself in prisons where you can't indulge in specific drugs. You can't do this, you can't do that. But when these new drugs came into the picture, even those people that were in charge started using them, and now everything kind of fell apart. So what Islam does, what I believe personally, from what I've witnessed, is that even those that took the Shahada, there was many of them that first, they still battled with that addiction. Some of them refused to come to Islam because they felt like, I'm addicted to this. I don't think I'm worthy enough of becoming Muslim. I have personally given dawah to someone. I actually gave him his Shahada, another Latino brother in a gang. He's young, 20, 21 years old, who was addicted to a specific drug. And he was reluctant to take his Shahada because of his addiction. And I told him, "La, brother, just take your Shahada now. We'll work on that afterwards. We'll work on trying to wean off this stuff so that you could become, away from that." It's just something about Islam. It's like when you say that Shahada, when you take your Shahada and you become a Muslim, your heart kind of starts to purify itself on its own. Allah kind of does what He does, and it starts to purify on its own. For some people, it may take longer than others. But now, those who aren't Muslim that are addicts, they see the drug as their salvation, as their means of, this is what I come to find peace in my life. Some people get tired of that. Those that become Muslim are like, hold on a second. This isn't my salvation. This isn't what needs to give me peace. I found peace and purpose with Allah. Now I'm still addicted to it. My body depends on this now. I get sick if I don't do these drugs. But at least I know that I serve my Creator. I'm gonna serve my creator. I'm gonna let my creator be in control of me. My creator is the one that is my master, not this drug. So that's what separates a Muslim and a non-Muslim that's an addict, is that one has Allah saying, you know what? My Rabb, he's my master, not this drug. So that consciousness of Allah, knowing that he exists, knowing that what he's doing is wrong, inshallah, like over time, it kind of purifies their heart, and little by little, they start to kind of wean off it until eventually they become more devoted to the deen.
Assalamu alaikum. Regarding donations, I and the people I work with donate through their stockbroker, and usually it has to be a 501c. And I see in your brochure they're part of Al Furqan Foundation. So is that if we send money to them, that will get to you guys?
Great question. So 5 years ago, I founded Islam in Prison. We had our own 501c. I ran it for 4.5 years. My intent on growing it was the name in itself, Islam in Prison, right? There was already pockets of efforts throughout the country of people doing prison work. What I thought of doing was doing like what ICNA has. ICNA is the umbrella, then they have all these different projects, right? So I figured maybe everybody would be under one brand so that we are organized and structured and we're not overlapping in our resources. For example, if I'm a prisoner and I write a letter to 7 masajid, there's a possibility that all of them may send something to me or none of them will send something to me. The issue will come that if they all send something to me, that's going to be an issue with the chaplain or the staff in the prison. What are we going to do with all this extra stuff? You're only allowed one prayer rug, right? So there was a structure aspect that was needed, but it didn't work out that way. And so I just ran the organization and the program where it grew from Illinois to the Midwest, all the way all over to the country 4.5 years later. And I got to the point where I can continue doing it. I contacted 2 reputable national organizations that have been doing dawah work for many years in this country, and both of them said, we're kind of doing something similar, or we're not doing that. That's not on our radar, prison work, right? So when I reached out to Al Furqan Foundation, we have Dr. Khattab, we have the Clear Quran translation, and I always use that Quran because I think it's one of the best of the many that exist. And it was a no-brainer, but it was conditional. I had to give up my 501 status, I had to dissolve my board, but it was a lot of pro to it because I gave up my career, and when I say that, subhanAllah, I gave up a really good career to do this work full time. And to be honest, when I made that decision, I know the sisters are going to say something. I didn't talk to my boss about it, but her response was, at least you'll have that on the day on your mizan. So she supported it, right? So now we are a project of Al Furqan Foundation under their 501c. But we have our own accounting, we have our own operational costs, and we have our own project. I have, to some degree, autonomy to run this as needed nationally.
So if I send money to Al Furqan and note it down that it's for you guys?
Just put Islam in Prison.
Okay, that's all I want.
That's it.
Good deal.
And then please distinguish between zakat and sadaqah, because we have 2 accounts and we don't overlap the 2.
Anybody else, please feel free to ask any questions.
I thought someone was going to ask, how can I volunteer?
Assalamu alaikum. That was part of my question, but I'm assuming you work with Baqi Sabur.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
the local guy.
That's Ummah Faith.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's from Faith.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
I volunteer with him.
Yeah.
My question involves inmates who are released and go into the community. And Baqi has a halfway house with Brother Omar. I'm familiar with that. However, the biggest problem that they run into is that these guys can't get jobs because of the record that they have.
Yeah.
How do y'all deal with that in Illinois? And what kind of positions do you normally wind up getting for them, both male and female?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a little different in Illinois, right? I've had many recipients, and my first recipient, he is currently now a multimillionaire. Allah did that, but with guidance and support, right? So it has to come from the community. So I'll answer there's two answers to answer that question. The first one is, we would have to get together, Brother Bucky and I, and figure out how we can get the community involved with transitional support. And that's one of the things that we've mastered as an organization. It's not just transitional support into society from prison, but it's also integrational support into the community. Hence, I always say if your community has an outreach committee, a dawah committee, an interfaith committee, then we should have a prison initiative committee, where we have a group of volunteers, a couple of brothers and a couple of sisters who actually volunteer into the prison system. So that way there's a network of connection of, oh, Sister Selena is coming home now. Then we know what to do. We have process and protocols, and we can share that with any organization, even a masjid. The second part is, in Illinois, it's a little different. Our philosophy is not, okay, now that you're home, we're going to do some mock interviews, and we're going to, do resume writing, and we're going to try and get you a job. There are jobs, been there and done that, right, for people with backgrounds. It's called background-friendly companies. Most of them are staffing agencies, most of them are day agencies, and some of them are corporate companies that, the higher-ups don't really care as long as the floor has, work and people to do the job. We don't do that. It's not our philosophy. Our philosophy is to try and retain you and keep you and help that mental transition from Prislam to Islam, because there's this distinction. There's a different tradition in prison of practicing Islam. Next to that, if you're with us a little longer, mental health is a very big thing. I always stress, brothers that call me collect, please go put a kite in or a request to see the mental health specialist. Well, why? I'm not crazy. No, it has nothing to do with the taboo of being crazy. There's a trauma in your mind that you don't even know you have that's probably all your inner childhood. That when you come home, the strong man, and you're out now, you never learn how to shed a tear, you decide to get a wife and you become abusive. You decide to have children, or she may have children, and you decide to become emotionally abusive. And the only way you can conquer that is self-work. Realizing that you have the trauma and accepting it to be able to understand and move on. So there's a lot of psychology behind our work. So therefore, we have mental health specialists or supports. And the third is financial literacy, as the brother Jay mentioned. That's very key. And what I mean by that is, what's halal, what's haram? How do you establish credit if you've never had a job without having credit cards, right? You want to buy a car. How do you get it financed? What's the difference between the opinion of 0% financing for 5 years, even though it's in the contract, versus buying it all out with cash? So we try to help with giving you what you need when you get to that point of financial literacy. Then we get to the last and final phase. Okay, you did 20 years. You're 40 years old now, 50 years old. What were you doing before you got locked up? What did you learn as far as vocational trade while you were locked up? Because in prison, in every state, there's an educational system given to the inmates if they so choose to take it. You can even earn up to a master's degree. You could even learn how to build a house by taking a vocational trade of construction, right? So then I asked the last question. I know before you came home, you were thinking, oh, when I get out, I'm going to do this. When I get out, I'm going to do that. I have an idea. I have a plan. What was it? And let's make it realistic. So once we figure out what is it that you can actually do with either your mind or your physical abled body, then it's a matter of connecting either a brother in the community who has a business, who may need someone with that specific skill set, no questions asked, and he will be the best worker. And in fact, he might buy that person out and have his own business. Who knows, right? Because that's exactly how things happen. Or we'll figure out how to get a small loan, riba-free, where we can give to the brother to start a small business. and he'll be successful. We're not about trying to get a brother who's coming out of prison, at least not in Illinois, and say, okay, go get a job. It's just not gonna work. And I'll tell you why. I believe that the number one reason why people go back, besides having the lack of support in general, Muslim or non-Muslim, is the stress, the need of, I need money. Now that I'm out, I have to go to work. I need to take care of my mom, my aunt, my kids. I need to start paying the bills because I haven't been doing nothing all these years. The moment you start thinking that way and things are not working out, what's gonna happen? You're gonna go back to your old ways. The fast life, the street of selling drugs or stealing or robbing. And then that is gonna be a revolving door of the word that I love to say that not many people understand, recidivism, going back to prison, right? So our philosophy and program is just to remove all of that and tailor individually, case by case, that aspect of proper transition and integration into the society and the Muslim community.
Real quick, just to touch on that, it's just the way he explains is perfect. It's also just, you know, coming home, how he mentioned just just knowing that just the responsibility of needing a job and stuff like that. A transitional home takes away that stress of having to pay rent. Takes away the stress of having to have food on the table. Why? Because a transitional home will provide you with your meals for the day. Transitional home will give you a bed to sleep in. It will give you these things that you need that you don't have to work. And right now, trade jobs are the ones, a lot of trade jobs, whether you have a background or a record or not, doesn't even matter. So there's a lot of opportunities for us is to just prepare him to transition, give him schooling, fill his brain and his heart, fill his heart with Islam, and fill his brain up with as much knowledge as he can. When you start giving him bills, car notes, rent, and how he's gonna pay for groceries, he can't absorb as much knowledge because he's consumed with all the stress. So learning trades and stuff like that, because we know that even a trade job, whether he has a background or not, won't matter. And he would be making good money, especially in Illinois, when you do a plumber or an electrician or carpentry, plumber, whatever it is that you're doing, you could go to school for this, or the education that they have up there is a quick, intensive education. You have nothing but time. You're still in a transitional home, so that when you finally complete these phases that we set forth, now you're ready to be in society on your own. You're ready to take on the world and responsibility because you are mentally prepared for it. So I just wanted to add those few things, I'm sure.
Jazakumullah khairan. It has been an honor for for both of you to be here, and we really like to thank you. And may Allah bless your work and allow you to impact many others in a positive way. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us. And you can volunteer if you want to volunteer. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum.